I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. Republicans are turning against each other in Texas after the recent verdict by MAGA Republicans in the Texas State Senate to acquit Attorney General Ken Paxton of the impeachment charges that were brought by the Texas House of Representatives. So the Texas House of Representatives, again, controlled by Republicans, voted 121 to 23 to impeach Ken Paxton. It was a bipartisan vote in the Texas House of Representatives. Thereafter, a trial was held in the Senate. There are 31 state senators in Texas. 19 are Republicans. 16 of them grouped together to ensure that Ken Paxton would not be convicted of the impeachment and would be acquitted of impeachment. Look, we covered this trial here on the various MeidasTouch network shows and on MeidasTouch.com. The trial evidence before the Senate was clear and convincing over the course of 2 weeks, showing that Ken Paxton personally directed state resources of his office to benefit a private citizen, Nate Paul, who was also employing Ken Paxton's mistress, how Ken Paxton utilized his authority to try to provide massive amounts of benefits to Nate Paul. And then when Ken Paxton's own hand-picked right-wing conservative staff members complained about it, Paxton retaliated against them, used state money to basically pay them off with a settlement. And then these whistleblowers, again, came forward. They were the ones who testified. It was Ken Paxton's staff members, Republicans, who testified against Ken Paxton. It was Paxton's friends. Paxton's mistress showed up and had to plead the fifth. And so the evidence here was overwhelming. So what happened? Then I'm going to read for you the letter by the Republican Dan Phelan, who is the Speaker of the House in Texas. And he came out basically criticizing the Republicans in the Senate. And I want to make a bigger point here of like, this is what I've been saying to Republicans, all along, is that this MAGA Republican is even different than Texas Republicans, in the House. And Donald Trump branded the House Republicans in Texas as rhinos, said, "Rhinos, you're worse than Democrats." And that's what convinced the state senators, the MAGA Republicans, to acquit. Donald Trump posted the following: Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton was easily reelected last November, but now establishment rhinos are trying to undo the election with a shameful impeachment of him. Who would replace Paxton, one of the toughest and best attorney generals in the country? Could it be a Democrat or even worse, a rhino? The voters have decided who they want. Democrats are feeling very good right now as they watch as usual. The Republicans fight and eat away at each other. It's a sad day in the great state of Texas. And that's what convinced the MAGA Republicans in the Senate to vote to acquit, not the evidence at all. And then Trump posted, "Congratulations to the great people of Texas and the state Senate for rejecting political persecution and respecting the integrity of our elections. We should choose our elected officials by voting, not by weaponizing government. That is for a banana republic, third world countries." No, I mean, the banana republic is what's going on with Ken Paxton. It's the height of corruption. And just so you know, this is what the Republican Speaker of the House, Dan Phelan, said of the impeachment verdict. This is what he says about the Republicans in the Senate. This is a very powerful statement that he made. Again, a Republican Speaker of the House of Texas wrote this. Texas Speaker of the House Dan Phelan today released the following statement regarding the Texas Senate's verdict on the impeachment of Attorney General Ken Paxton. Quote, "Over the last 2 weeks, the Texas House Board of Managers provided the Texas Senate and the people of Texas extensive evidence of Ken Paxton's corruption, deception, and self-dealing. It is extremely unfortunate that after hearing and evaluating this evidence, the Texas Senate chose not to remove him from office. Moreover, I find it deeply concerning that after weeks of claiming he would preside over over this trial in an impartial and honest manner, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, would conclude by confessing his bias and placing his contempt for the People's House on full display. To be clear, Patrick attacked the House for standing up against corruption. His tirade disrespects the constitutional impeachment process afforded to us by the founders of this great state. The inescapable conclusion is that today's outcome appears to have been orchestrated from the start, cheating the people of Texas of justice. You want to know who orchestrated it? It was Donald Trump and Dan Patrick and Ken Paxton and MAGA Republicans. They didn't care about what the evidence was, even if the star witnesses were Republicans who witnessed the corruption, who witnessed the crimes, and the evidence was staring them in the face. That's what happens in a banana republic. Goes on to say, the impeachment was set in motion because Ken Paxton requested millions of taxpayer dollars to settle a lawsuit brought by conservative senior employees who Paxton himself recruited to his office. These brave individuals were willing to sacrifice their reputations and careers to fight against the misconduct they witnessed, which included abuse of power, corruption, allegations of bribery, and allowing Nate Paul to act as the de facto Attorney General of Texas. The House General Investigating Committee's subsequent investigation into the merits of the settlement produced more than enough damning evidence to warrant impeachment. The impeachment process exists not to punish the offender, but to determine whether they have abused their power so egregiously that they are unfit for office and their removal is in the best interest of the state. It is unfortunate that the outcome of this process will ultimately relinquish control of the state's top law enforcement agency to an individual who I believe clearly abused his power, compromised his agency and its employees, and moved mountains to protect and benefit himself. The Senate's refusal to remove Ken Paxton from office is, however, not the end of this matter. Ken Paxton is the subject of multiple other lawsuits, indictments, and investigations. If new facts continue to come out, those who allowed him to keep his office will have much to answer for. I extend my utmost thanks to the House board managers and their legal team for their diligent work on this matter, and to each of the 121 House members who bravely acted in the best interest of the state by voting to advance the articles of impeachment. It was a difficult vote to take, but not a difficult decision, and unlike others, they chose principles over politics. I stand with them in full support of their decision and recognize the sacrifices they made in the name of doing what is right. Because of them, Texans had the ability to hear the evidence in a public trial as the founders of this great state intended. And then just if you want to know what was the argument being made, like what was Ken Paxton's lawyer saying, right? Like with the overwhelming evidence out there, what do you think they said? How do you think MAGA argues? Personal attacks, right? Personal attacks. So here is Ken Paxton's lawyer's closing argument. And all the MAGA people on social media love this. They're like, yeah, look at what happened. And so you have here Paxton's lawyer basically saying, you know what? The real issue here is that the Speaker of the House of Texas, Dan Phelan, he's a drunk. And he was embarrassed because he got caught drunk. So that's why he's doing this. He's embarrassed. He should resign. He's a drunk. Here, play this clip.
Dade Phelan got his feelings hurt. He was so drunk handling the House business, knowing full well that they had no evidence to support an impeachment and they hadn't done their homework. When Ken Paxton says, hey man, you embarrassed the devil out of yourself, you should resign, they sped up the process and impeached this man.
Folks, that is what a banana republic looks like, what you just watched and witnessed. That's not how we should do law here in America. We should do law by evidence, by witnesses, and when the overwhelming amount of that shows that someone engaged in crimes and corruption, in this case sufficient for impeachment, you follow the evidence. That's what you're supposed to do in a democracy. It is so important that you share and spread these videos and you let people know what's going on. It's important that you note, hey, the person whose statement I read, the Speaker of the House, who just condemned what the Senate did, is a Republican. So now what MAGA is saying, just so you understand, that the Texas Republicans in the House of Representatives, they're all rhinos now. And the MAGA Republicans say they're worse than Democrats, is what the MAGA Republicans say. So it is dehumanizing. This is the language of fascism. And I'm reminded of what was said during Nazi Germany, right? First they came for this group, then they came for that group, then they came for the other group. I wasn't doing anything because I wasn't part of that group. Then they came for me. Then they came for me. That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. Spread the word, spread the message. The best day for you to get involved in getting out voter registration of people who are going to vote for democracy and letting people know, it was yesterday. The next best thing is today. Do something today. Encourage people to be registered to vote. Make sure you do your part. Let's leave it all out there for our democracy. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Have a great day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.